Okay, first of all, thank you everybody for coming. So as I said, this is my first talk. I haven't expected this many people. If I'm like fumbling or like stuck somewhere, please bear with me. Okay, my name is Siddhartha. I'm a senior UX designer. I'm on Twitter at WebSidhu. It's like a weird handle. I had it from 2009. I don't know why I had it. It's so stupid now. It's like, but anyway, so I do a lot of prototyping. I do design. I mean, I call myself a designer. I did my undergrad in computer science because having a computer science degree helped me a lot to understand code and how software works and how we could utilize some of the software, thinking in design, right? So again, we all know that there are a plethora of prototyping tools available in the market today. There are like many tools. Like, I just want to take a quick poll. Like, how many of you are actually UX designers? Just raise your hands. Like designers, pure design. Researchers? Any researchers? No, okay, few of them. Any prototypers? Like UXE, UX engineers? Anybody who heard about the UX and engineer roles? Okay, some of them. Okay, this talk is kind of targeted for a hybrid of a designer and a UX engineer role. So a lot of the times as designers, we do prototype as well, right? So we take something and we take our designs, put through some apps like InVision, Sketch, Figma, or like even like any other prototyping tools that you can think of, right? So UX Pin or anything, right? How many of you use like InVision? Raise your hands. A lot. Sketch for prototyping, not for designing. Sketch for prototyping. Very few. Okay. Figma for prototyping. Some of us. Okay. What is the tool that you use for prototyping today? Just yell. Prototype. Okay, there's a lot of things. Okay. And every tool has its own merits and demerits, right? Some tool can do some things and some tools cannot do something, right? It's based on what we call like whatever it is feasible for that tool, they build that, and it's not feasible, they leave it out. And every tool has its own philosophy of what a prototyping tool should be, right? And also there are like many prototyping techniques. Like a paper prototyping, you don't need anything, you just like draw a bunch of screens, and the hardware prototyping, which is like use an Arduino or like, you try to use a cardboard or something, it's still prototyping, right? Even Wizard of Oz, like when some of my colleagues are prototyping for Google Assistant, they're like some person behind the screen just talking like Google Home, right? Google Assistant. They did not do anything. They just like yell like a person sitting behind the screen just telling the answers, right? Wizard of Oz. But today, we're not going to actually look at any of those tools. We're going to look at some really unconventional methods for prototyping. So these things that I've learned over the years, I don't think you'd learn these things anywhere on the books. It's not popular, but it's still super helpful to know these things. And it helped me a lot in terms of expediting my design process and prototyping, right? Any questions so far? Interested? Not interested? Okay. Okay. When I said unconventional, these are really unconventional. Like nobody would have actually seen, maybe some of you, I mean, I should not say like nobody, but like, a lot of smart people here. So hopefully, let's see. Okay. Before we jump in, like what is a prototype? Like any like answers? What is a prototype? Prototype is a test. Okay. Sketch. Okay. 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 I call it a big lie. Prototype is a big lie because it's not a real thing. You're faking from something, some random things, and you're making it look like the real thing. But it's not real. It's a prototype, right? It's a lie. It doesn't matter, like, it's like it's simply make believe of something, right? It doesn't matter how you made it or how it works or like how it came from. It works, and it looks like the real thing, and it's a prototype, and your job is done, right? It's like it's like magic. It's like trying to, okay, build something that is quite not the right way, but it looks and appears on the front like, okay, this is the real thing, right? That's a prototype for me. And we can make believe or like achieve these prototyping things in many different ways. Like we all learn in school or like outside or blog posts or anything like, oh, you have to use this tool, you have to learn this tool. Like you go create this flow, you have to design on Sketch, transfer to something like Principle or something, then have these points, blah, 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 all these things. It's like, it's a traditional thing. Let's actually jump in how you can actually do prototyping in a different way, and how you can take advantage of some of the tools on the browser itself, right? As I told, like I'm going to focus a little bit on the web today. There are other ways you could prototype on mobile too, but today I'm going to focus on web. How do you actually prototype on? So, disclaimer, I'm going to show some demos. Some will work, some will not work. Hopefully the demo gods will be with us, shouting their blessings. So let's pray for the best. Okay. The first thing, Chrome developer tools. Like everybody knows Chrome developer tools. That's awesome. Like you change some things, right? So there is something called designer mode on developer tools. Anybody know this? So let me actually show this. Oops. Okay. Let's go to a demo, right? So I'm on Airbnb site. Everybody can see that, right? So I'm going to open up developer tools. Is it big enough? Do I need to make it bigger? Okay. I'm going to say document dot designer mode equals on, right? Once I say that, what it'll do is it'll turn this whole page into an editable thing, right? So, oops, I clicked on it. I shouldn't have clicked on it. But you can actually see that I can select this and type whatever I want. In the whole page, I can, let's say I want to actually say like, I want to translate this into some other language. Translate, go to this and paste this, and probably I want to translate into some Punjabi. I don't know why, but I copy that and come back to here, and I basically paste that one. Now I can like kind of design the whole existing website in a different language, and I can take a screenshot quickly. You know how to take a screenshot, the whole page screenshot on developer tools? You can basically take a screenshot on Mac, but you can also take a screenshot on developer tools itself. If you type in Command-Shift-P and search for a screenshot or screen capture, so it'll give you some options. It's called capture full screenshot. If you select full screenshot, it's going to give me the screenshot and going to store on the desktop, hopefully. Have that somewhere. It's still, because it's a long page, it's actually taking a long time. Okay, that's my screenshot. You can actually see that it actually gave me the whole screenshot of the page, right? Super simple, super easy. You don't need to go like if somebody is like a copywriter asking like, hey, can you test with this string? I don't need to go in my sketch file, make some edits, like again save it, export it. I don't need to do that. Like if you have a live website, I can just go in here, developer mode on, designer mode on, change something, take a screenshot, send it quickly, or like add a bunch of screens, and you can do that. Okay, this is cool. This is not that impressive, right? It's okay. Still works. Next thing that I want to show is WizBug. Anybody heard about WizBug? Okay. WizBug is a Chrome extension built by a Googler on a 20-person project. He's like, I'm bored and I'll build something cool. And he's like, he's a UX engineer. He works in this building or the next to this building. He works in Google Cloud, but yeah. He's super cool. He built this plugin called WizBug. What it does is, I installed the WizBug already, so that it looks something like that. You can actually see that there. what it does is, I'm going to refresh this page right now. Let me minimize this. And I click on WizBug here. It gives me a bunch of tools here. You can actually see that. Now I select this, and I hover on anything that I can actually see. Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's cool. It's like a theater now. Okay, that's cool. No whistles. No phones. Okay. But anyway, so this is a super cool tool. Like you can actually hover on each and everything. Like you can actually see what these elements are they aligned or not, like all those things. That's fine, right? So it's okay. If you look at other tools, like it gives me like all these specs when I hover on it. So now I'm actually looking at what this element is, like what the color is, like how the margins, paddings, and like all those things. And the accessibility one is super cool because when I actually hover on something, it gives me like accessibility, whether it's accessible or not, and you can actually see all the images and like all this stuff. The cool part I want to show is move tool, right? So like designers, we move a lot of things. So we move 1 pixel right, 1 pixel left, like up, down, left, right, like all the time. We keep moving stuff. Like if you want to, like a lot of the times, like we want to explore a design that actually looks like maybe we should move this search thing to on the right. That's an exploration that we can do. Why not? Because we're designers and we can do it, right? So with the move tool, basically you can select a couple of things like that. So if you hold Shift and click, basically you can select these things, and you can basically. So by the way, if you actually hover on these little things, it actually tells you like shows you the shortcuts that you could use on each of the element. So I'm going to select some of these things so that you can see these things in the chart. Not even see. Okay, am I actually? Probably I'm moving on the wrong. Okay, probably that's the move one. So I can now move this thing. And I can actually click that or click that and bunch of things and actually say like, I want to move these things onto the right. Right? Oops. I need a mouse. So you get the idea, right? So you can actually select a bunch of things, and I want the date to be here. I can dismantle the whole site and take a screenshot and send it back to, like, all these things work. The beauty of this thing is once you move these things, all the interactions and all those things still are alive. It's not like a static mock. And if you quickly want to test something with the new layout, you could create a new layout very quickly and show it to somebody next to you and say like, hey, test this out, or like, hey, can I get your opinion and stuff? Because it's actually live version, so you're not actually spending a lot of time recreating that prototype itself. You're just moving it on, right? There are a bunch of other things I want to show. Let me refresh this, and let's say I want to actually change these images to something else. Like, I like these images, but I want to change these images to something else, right? The way that I would change the images today is I go to my sketch file, open it, and replace the image, do all that kind of crazy stuff, and then export it and send it to the user, right? I can select one of the image here and click on Control E or Command E, and it selects a bunch of images with the same layout. Hopefully. Okay. So now you can actually see that. I don't think you can see it, but like, it actually selecting all these images there, right? And I can go to my images. I have downloaded a bunch of cat pictures. So I want to change this to cat pictures. And I can just drag and drop those things, and now voila, all those cat pictures, right? So it's super cool, super easy, super simple. Now I have a new kind of design for my website that is already running and live, and it works. I can click on it, I can change it. And the other thing is, we looked at the design mode, right? So where I can type in and change the text. In VisBug, you can just double click on anything, and you can just start editing stuff. You don't even need design mode on. By default, the design mode is on, right? So I can say something like, oh, maybe this one, right? I think I lost it, but I can basically type in like that and say something random things like cute cat or something. It's not a cat, but you get the idea, right? So this technique people don't teach this in traditional prototyping courses or anything, but it's still valid, and doesn't matter how you actually made something work, it still works, and it's still a prototype, and it's still a design that you made, and it's still valid for me, right? So you can do a lot of cool things with this. You can change the margins and stuff. So if you actually look at this, I have this margin selected. Let's say I select this line and I type in Control E, and if I do the shift, I'm selected here. So if you actually look at that, it gives you a little shortcuts up and down to increase the margin. If you type in the option to decrease the margin and stuff. So sometimes they won't work because of certain layouts. You just need to click around and select the right item to make sure that it works, right? Now, let me actually select this one, right? So that you can actually see the margin stuff. Now, I'm just increasing the margin between this and this. If I select something like that, option and shift, and it is actually decreasing the margin. You can actually see how much margin it has in between them by clicking on this and actually see that, okay, that's between that and there is like 36 pixels margin, right? It's like designing on the browser on your website or a tool that you already have. Let's say okay, maybe this is cool, Sid, but I work on a mobile app. How do I get all these things on a mobile app? Have a question? Yes, it does work with all the things. So basically, this is the DOM that is being manipulated. This is the live code that is being manipulated. So all the responsiveness, anything that you change would work as it would expect on a normal website, right? So does that answer your question? Yeah, cool. So you may ask, Sid, we actually work on a mobile website. How do I make that work here, right? So you can inspect the element. You can go back and click on this little mobile button and change this to Pixel 2 or iPhone or whatever. Just refresh it. And you just put this on the right, and I'm going to make it 100% so that you can all see it. Now, this actually turned into a mobile website, right? And hopefully the VisBug works here too. So you can actually see that VisBug is here. You could make the changes, whatever you want, take a screenshot, send it to whoever is responsible for doing whatever, right? So anyways, there are a lot of cool things about this. I would let you explore. The intention of this talk is to inspire you of these different techniques, not to teach you every single tool right here. So hopefully you kind of understood what this does, right? There is a talk actually given by the creator of this plugin. So if you go search for that, I also have the link in here. So, and also the slides are at this link, bit.ly Sids talk dash South Bay UX. So that has all the links and stuff. So you can go check it out. Right. The next one. Okay, now Sid, this is cool, but these are all ephemeral, right? So you can only see them. If I refresh it, they'll go away. How do I preserve my changes? Once I want to actually make some changes, how do I preserve them? So there is a tool called Stylus, which is a Chrome extension where you can actually write some styles and the styles will be preserved. For example, let's go back to this. And I'm gonna go back to my old, same Airbnb example here. I'm gonna inspect the element. For some reason, I want to change the background of this to be black, right? So the way that normally you would do that is with the Whizbug, you could do that. But for now, I'm gonna actually use this one, Chrome Developer Tools, to change the background to black. So you can click on this plus button here to add a class. Now I can actually say background is 000. Something, some change. I mean, you can build up on the changes and like all those things, but I'm just giving an example. That's the background I want for that. Even for that one, I want a background color to be black. Oops, not 0. Okay. Now, like all the background color is right, and now I want to actually to be colored to be white. So this is an example. This is not what we want, but imagine that's an example, right? Now I made like a couple of changes here and there. If I click on Inspector Style Sheets, and all my changes will be stored here, right? I can copy these changes. Now I know what I want. I can copy these changes. And I already installed the plugin called Stylus, which is this. So you can actually click on that little thing, and actually opens up saying like, oh, write styles for this URL. So now, actually, before going that, if I refresh this page, what happens is my styles are not preserved. They're gone, right? So they're like, the black one is gone. But if I click on Stylus and actually say like, oh, I want to write styles for this URL, and I can click on that one, it gives me a little, UI kind of thing. And I just paste my styles that I just created from there, and I save it. Once I save it, you come back here. If I refresh it, it still preserves. Like now Airbnb is black, and you can basically change anything that you want, right? So change the text colors, positions, locations, all those things will be preserved. Like if I close it, open it back, it still has the same styles, because now we are tampering with Airbnb. I'm not making change to the actual code. I'm faking it on top of the existing code. This is cool. Okay, not impressed yet, but like maybe like how about like this is all surface level. I can make these changes on my own. Like what about interactions, right? So what about like adding something, some click action or something completely different, right? Inserting something to the app itself, right? You may ask, like, how can I do this? There is some tool called Tamper Monkey on Chrome, or Grace Monkey, if you have heard of it. Anybody heard of that? It's a really popular one. Used to like do crazy things when MySpace was launched, and like when Facebook launched their thing. So it used to like manipulate all the images and make them big and like all this crazy stuff. And used to make the images like flash and like blast and do all the crazy stuff, right? Okay, I'm gonna actually remove these things. Now this is just the styles. I'm just giving an example there. I'm gonna go to material.io. This is our material design website. Okay, let's say I have a bunch of navigational items. I want to add additional navigational item called like talks or whatever it is, right? For some reason, I want to add. The way that I would do in general is like, you go to Sketch, take a screenshot, copy and paste, like, you could do that, but you're still losing the functionality of it, right? The way that I would do that is like, this actually, or if you look at the inspector element, you can actually see that that's a UL, and there are a bunch of things inside it. So I can actually right-click and edit as HTML. Now it's giving me code for that element. I need to add one additional element, right? I'm going to copy that. I'm going to paste it here. I'm going to say, like, instead of resources, it's actually talks. And I'm gonna press Command and Enter. And now you can actually see that talks is being added to the design, right? Now I can take a screenshot and send it to like whoever I want. That's still fine. But like, if I refresh it, it's gone, right? So this is like manipulating the DOM itself. We are not changing the style. We are actually introducing a new element to an existing. A lot of the times, like when we do prototyping, unless you're creating some design from scratch, like most of us, like to my experience, like very few of us have an opportunity to create something from scratch. We are all working from an existing system or an existing website or an existing design system that's already there. So this will not work when you're actually creating something from scratch, right? So we are not actually targeting the use case of creating something from scratch. You can do it, but I wouldn't recommend doing this way, because this is to help you expedite the process of creating the prototypes when you already have something built and something robust, right? So, okay. Now let's take a look at it. You want to expect the same kind of result in this layout. I want to actually have something inserted onto the DOM, right? So I installed a plugin, which is an extension called it's called Tamper Monkey. Don't you guys think it's a weird name, Tamper Monkey? Like, it's like, okay. But anyways, I click on it and I actually say like, create a new script. Now I'm actually provided with the new script saying like, hey, look, you need to know a little bit of JavaScript here. So I'm kind of going a little bit into the coding side here, but it's not that complicated. It's like super simple. If you look at some of the examples, you would get it. There are like 2 or 3 functions that you need. Once you know those things, you are all copying and pasting. Trust me, I just copied and pasted this thing right now before coming to this talk, right? So all the thing that you want to need is like you select that element and insert a new node into the UL or whatever the element that we select, right? This is what we had. Let's actually keep this on the side. So you can actually see that that's the parent element called header, like whatever the nav list. That's the one. And I'm inserting another UL into the DOM, right? The way that I can do that is by, I'm writing a function here, like these. Don't get scared. It's super simple. If you go look at like JavaScript, like how to select an element, it's a very simple thing. There are like 5 or 6 things that you should know. So I'm gonna say like list, and I say like document query selector. Spell it right. Okay. Now I got my list item, and basically what I need to do is list.append a new element. But I don't know, I haven't created the new element yet. So I can create the new element. I'm just calling the new element equals. So whatever the code that we copied and pasted, right? So basically that is this. If I edit this HTML, this is what we want, right? So the one technique that I learned is like if you want, if a bunch of text has line breaks and you don't want line breaks when you copy it and paste it, so basically you can take this and paste it in your address bar, and it actually puts it next to each other, and copy it, and just like come back and you can paste it back. It's super cool, super fast. Like you don't need to worry about like taking. See, now I have all these things in one line. So if you were to do it in one line, previously I need to like remove like one by one by one. Like it's like super simple. It's a lifesaver for me. See, trust me. Like after this talk, this is like 45 minutes talk. After this talk, take some of these concepts, and I bet it'll save 90 minutes of your time or your design career. If it saves that, I think this talk has a purpose, and I win. Okay. Okay, now I have that element, so right, all these things, and I just need to change the resources to what you call talks, right? So, okay, now I can actually say that. Now I saved it. I already have the other one. I'm gonna, um, block that one. This is the live script. Okay. Editor. This is my live script because I zoomed in, so it's actually showing me that. Okay, now you can actually see that if I go back here and refresh it, you can actually see that it actually inserted all the text, right? You can see that, right? So it's just inserted all the text. But that's not what we want. We don't want the text. We want to convert the text into a DOM element. So how do you do that? I just Googled it. I don't know how to do it first. Like I just Googled it, and I found out like there is a little snippet that I could use, right? So that is on my install user script. I'm going to copy. I'm going to cheat. I don't remember that. So this is the function. It's like something called create element from HTML. So that's basically it. So I'm going to copy it and paste it here. I'm going to run it here and say like, hey, create an element with this new element. So what it's doing is basically creating a DOM element using our text. Now, if I go back here and refresh this, voila, I can actually see that there is talks here. If I refresh and it still stays there, I can actually click on it and it'll take me to, it is gone because we are not targeting the URL properly. If you want to actually see this, actually you're targeting matches, go to 0. Okay. Now, basically, I need to target onto all material.io website. Now, we targeted only on material.io/design, right? So I'm going to take that off. I'm saying like, target and put a star, meaning it's a wildcard, like anything in material design website, this script needs to be executed, right? Now, if I come back, refresh it, every page I have this. If I click on talks, I can have, I go back to resources. The reason why, because we did not change the link on the URL. So you can actually go back here. It's actually changing. You need to change this resources to talks, right? Now I save it. I refresh it. Now, if I click on talks, it's going to take me talks, but talks is not existing because nobody built the talks website. Now, the next step is you can actually insert something else onto this page as well by using the same technique. You can insert an image, insert a layout, insert anything onto this layout, remove all this stuff and put something that you want, right? So you're just basically, what we're doing is we are building on top of an existing site so that we are not recreating everything. We could use the same class names, we could use the same styles, and it works really well. You could use this, you could send it to other people, ask them to install the same script, and you could just test the prototype. Isn't it cool? It's super cool. I really love it because I worked in enterprise a lot, like for 3 years, and we had to make like a lot of big, huge tables, and it's so tedious to make tables in Sketch. And it sucked big time, but anyway, so we used to like use these techniques, and we just need to add like a bunch of things. It's a for loop, and it adds like a bunch of new rows and new columns. Super easy, super simple, made my life so much easier. Okay. Now, all these things are cool. Now let's take any questions so far, like, a question? Yeah, so you can share those scripts once you actually use a script, install script, and you can, there is a feature that you could share these scripts. I don't know, but like, there is a way you could do that. They need to, because I haven't actually had a chance to share these scripts because I'm the one creating the scripts and giving my laptop to other people to test. So I never had a chance to hey, go ahead and install this script. They need to have the Tamper Monkey installed on their machine, and you can download the script and double click on it, and it basically installs it onto the computer. So you can look at the documentation and stuff, right? So that is definitely a thing. Okay. Okay, now again, theater mode. So now let's take it a step back. Now we looked at all these crazy things, and there's like a bunch of things we could take a look at a little bit later too. So how many of you work with visualizations and charts and stuff? Yeah, very few, but I worked a lot in my because I worked in enterprise. It's always tedious to make a chart in Sketch. A bar chart. There are a couple of plugins. They don't give all the different type of charts, right? They only give let's say a bar chart, a line chart, or something, right? So I want to actually make a spider web chart, right? So anybody know what a spider web chart is? Yeah. I'm going to Google for chart maker. I'm going to do it live. So hopefully, so this is one offering, AmCharts. So they actually let you make charts online. So I'm going to make a chart. I'm going to make, this is a polar, or this is called a spider web chart or a polar chart. So people call it different ways. So I'm going to select that one. So basically that'll be like that, right? So you can actually see that. And so to make this chart in Sketch, you need to go ahead and make the circle, join those things and adjust those things, blah, 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 and stuff. There is an easier way to actually make this chart in Sketch, right? So once you've configured whatever you want, oh, I want this this to be this text color to be red, and I can have red color, not a good color, but now you can actually inspect the element. You can actually see that there is an SVG code. So you can right click and edit as HTML. You can copy the whole thing, open Sketch, just paste it, and you can actually see that the whole chart is there. So, and actually the cool thing is, this is actually layers. Okay. Okay. So let's say you want to make a chart. You can make a chart in multiple ways. You can go to Sketch and make a chart, right? You can also use some online chart generators. This is one of my favorite, it's not a favorite one. It's like a chart generator. You can generate a chart. You can use even Google Sheets to do it, but it's one of the things. So you've actually changed the values here. If you want to change 234, it automatically changes all those things for you. Your values are here. Once you set your values, all the colors are set, different things. Like that. You right click on the chart and you basically inspect the element, right? Now you go to the SVG of that. You can actually see that there is an SVG, which is a rendering format. And you right click and edit as HTML. You can basically copy that and go to Sketch and just paste it. Doesn't work with Figma. This is a so you can actually, what you can do is you can save this as a sketch file and import that into Figma. Had a question? Same question. So you can actually see this. These are actually groups. So you can actually see that you can select each element like that and actually change the colors. Oh, I want actually robot. And I want this color to be something else, or these things to be different, or you can actually do this thing for any kind of chart. So I'll give a really complex one, D3.js has really complex charts. Have you known D3.js? Anybody? Okay, there are a lot of complex charts. How are we doing on time? Let's say you want to make this chart. right? So there's like, the huge thing. You want to make this on this chart on Sketch. You can basically right click and you can go to SVG, inspect element, edit as HTML. It's a big one, so it'll take a little bit of time, and copy this whole thing. I'm going to delete all of the existing stuff and basically paste it. Takes a little bit of time because it has like a lot of images and stuff. So it did not do it. The reason why it did not do it is they actually did not render the chart properly. So if they render the chart properly, you could get the image itself. So there is a tool called in Automate. So there's a plugin called Automate, and you can paste utils. If you go to utils and insert SVG code as layers, and you could paste that. Hopefully this works. Yeah. Basically now you can actually see that this works. These are all groups, so you can actually go in and actually change the colors of these things and do whatever you want. So, like, it's called Automate. It's under utils and insert SVG code. Again, this is not related to prototyping, but it's also still a useful technique to know that you don't end up creating like a huge chart on your own, right? So if you want to make this chart on your own, it takes like forever. So you just can use an existing framework to make the charts. Right? Okay. So this is super complicated to make in like any chart, right? So there's like other things that you could do, like if you take a look at these kind of charts, like this one is hex bin chart or whatever it is. I don't know why would you use this at all, but like the chart is like you can actually do the same thing. You can inspect the element that is an SVG, edit as HTML. You copy the whole thing. I'm gonna delete all of these. Just paste it. Now, as I said, it didn't actually do it properly. The Sketch also has a native version of when you copy and paste an SVG. It predicts and detects and it tries to convert it, but it's not as good as the plugin that I was showing, right? It has some, bugs and stuff, but this plugin does it really well. So I can paste that, and now I got the, and all these things are like little layers. It's kind of cool. I love this. Okay. That is cool. Okay, now let's get into a little bit more hands-on, drag and droppy, right? So it's like, now we talked about a couple of other things. Now, the other thing that I've personally liked is something called UEgg. So it's a tool. It's not a fully built tool, but it's actually really good for creating like quick prototypes with clickable components. So meaning you can actually see this. There is a bunch of, once you actually land on uegg.nav.sh, this is the file. It has a bunch of tools that you could use. These are actual components. So if I want to actually a top bar, so I can actually drag and drop, and it gives me a top bar. And I can go to settings. This should be like 100%. And I can change like a bunch of things and stuff. So if I preview it, you can actually see that. This is actually an app. So that is running on, it's a clickable app, right? You can do a bunch of things. So you can go different directions. It's a free one, so you can actually see that now it became like a mobile app. So I can go back here. I want to actually add a div or something like that. That's a div. And I can basically say like, okay, the width is 100%. And it takes the whole thing. I want to add a table or a button or an input. Like, let's say I want to add an input there. So I added input, some radio button. So that's a radio button. Or that's a select box, whatever it is, right? And I'm going to add a fab for no reason. Okay. That's a fab. If you go here, and you can actually fix the locations. Like, I want the fabs are always in the bottom center, right? So I can actually say bottom right. So it's like, let's say 32 pixels, and the right is maybe 32 pixels. Now the fab is on the bottom 32 pixels. Now if I actually go preview it, now this is actually on the 32 pixels. If I go to a different location, it'll still be that. It's actually a clickable fab. You can create the whole prototype with using this. It's not fully built out yet. It's still work in progress. The person who is building it, I think he is on a vacation or something. So I don't know what he's doing, but like, hopefully he, finds some mental peace and builds it out. But yeah, anyways. Okay. Anyway, so okay, that's one tool that I want to actually show. As I said, these are like, a bunch of different things that you could use and like make those prototypes. Okay. Finally, I want to actually show something that I personally use regularly in my prototyping. So what I use is Google Sheets to prototype. So I use Google Sheets as a backend. I'm going to give you a demo. And after that, we're going to jump in a couple of things. I'm going to share some of the resources and stuff, right? Cool. Okay. Let me pull this thing up. This is me. That's what I want. Okay, that's Pixel 2 XL. Okay, this is a prototype built for like the landing screen, like the launching screen, right? So you can put this thing onto your mobile or like, on your mobile website as well, right? So you could test it. So the idea is we would test like, this is not actually my idea. This is another team design, actually, the prototype. I actually mimicked the prototype to show you how this would work, right? The way it works is like, I have a sheet like this, and I have a bunch of configurations here. So the status, I'm going to put this thing side by side. You can actually see that. That's what I had. Okay. Now I have like this name here. Probably I want to actually, I'm testing with some person named John Doe. So I'm giving this sheet to my researcher, and you can actually see that actually changed it on John Doe. It's actually a live prototype when you're calling somebody, like you're testing somebody, saying like, okay, I want this to be like, to begin with, it want to be like in the ideal state. That's basically the ideal state. That's what the researcher is actually, having it. Okay, now if I give this phone or an app to a person that I'm testing, and I'm going to say like, okay, now you're going to expect a call, like, how this works. It actually say like, I change this to incoming. So once I change this to incoming, so what you're going to do is it's going to show me like, little thing. I can click on this and actually change this to person answering the call, right? So again, this is a very this is a secure go. But anyways, so this is a high level like crux of the prototype is you have something to control. We are not actually creating this whole calling mechanism, like creating this whole prototype. I built this thing in like 30 minutes. It takes like very less time, and it's effective, and it's very convenient for the researchers. If they have like a longer name, like somebody wants to actually say, oh, my name is, let's say I'm gonna change this to incoming, and I have like a long name. So how that's gonna work, right? So I'm gonna, have a really long name, how is it gonna work, right? So you basically this gonna break, right? So it's easy to test these things. You can copy and paste some different languages. Like let's say I want to actually use a different language, right? For example, this is my name in my own language, Telugu, but like who knows? Because nobody speaks here. So that's basically how it would look. It's so quick to make these prototypes and so fast and easy, right? So I'll show you how these things work, right? So I use something called Firebase. Have any of you heard about Firebase? Firebase is a Google offering. It's free. You can, I mean, there is a free tier and you could pay as you go. But as prototypers, like we don't need anything to pay. Like we can just have a couple of databases and we could generally get what we want, right? So I'm going to log into Firebase here. So you can type in just firebase.com. Once you sign in, go to the console, create a database. It's called Realtime Database. So as I mentioned earlier, this talk is to inspire you, not to teach you how to do it. So there are other resources that you could learn how to do it. There's a step-by-step guide one of my colleagues wrote on how to get these things set up. I linked that on the slide deck in the notes section. So you can actually see this. This is my database. I already have it. That's a Firebase project. So I have a bunch of things here, storage, hosting, and blah, 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 all the stuff. You really need a database. We have something called real-time database. So you can actually see that that's the sheet that I'm actually, the sheet ID that I'm using. You can actually see that movies, matches. And once you expand this, you have a bunch of things there, right? The same things that you're actually seeing. So if I change something here, let's say I want to change this to Seattle. When I press enter, so you can actually see that the database changed. So the prototype is powered by this database. So when the database is changed, the prototype is also changed. The prototype is reacting to the database change. So you can actually make the change here too. Like you can actually see that. Let me put it here and actually say that, okay, I want to actually move it back to the game. Right. So I'm actually making that change here and it appears here. So what the whole thing is happening behind the scenes is there is an app that uses this database. You're changing something, it reacts, and it's really useful when you're doing something like notifications. It needs to be instant, like it needs to come and go, some things like that, or you're dealing with like huge tables and stuff. So let me show you another example, right? So I'm going to show you one other example, and probably make. So anybody know the movie DB? It's a open source movies database. Like you have all the movies and stuff, and it has a API and it has a bunch of things, right? So I actually made this a little app which has a bunch of movies and it's in a table format, right? So technically, if you want to add like more rows or more things onto a sketch file or any prototype, it'll take a lot of time for us to do that. So now I actually configured this to this sheet and something called movies. So this is my database, what we call, and you have a bunch of things here. So now I have like 19 things. What I'm going to do is I'm going to copy a bunch of things and I'm going to repeat them. You know, if you hold Command and Shift down and right, it selects the whole thing. I didn't know that until like recently. I hated myself. Apparently, you can double click on that and it just fills in the whole thing. What did I do? What did I do? Okay. So you can basically select those things and apparently you can double click and it just fills in those things. I didn't know that either. Okay. Now I have a bunch of things. Now if I go back to my prototype, you can actually see that a lot of things kind of got added. So previously you only have like till here. Now we have like a bunch of all these things added to the list, right? So it's super useful to make these prototypes using some of the sheets and the databases. And for this, there are two things that you need to know. First thing is you need to know some JavaScript. Like I built this app in Vue.js. If anybody wants to know about Vue.js, you could go vuejs.org. Or anybody heard about React? It's a few, because React is so popular. Like it's like React. It's a web framework. You could use any of the framework. You don't need to use a framework. You could use even Framer. So Framer has a Firebase connector where you could use the Firebase as a database and create Framer prototypes. So that's what I wanted to show, but like we're almost out of the time, right? How are we doing, Aaron, on the time? Seriously? Okay. Okay. So I want to show a working example of it. Like, it'll be a little technical. I don't know how many of you would be interested in it. Let's still, anyways, I'll just go with it. So, just information, right? So you could forget it if you don't like it. Okay. This is a blog post. This Edwin is my colleague, so he wrote it about like how we use AngularJS for prototyping using this technique, right? So we talk about like this search kind of experience. We want to do mimic the actual search, but it's not actual search. So we kind of created a fake data using that database and kind of created this hybrid prototype that actually is realistic, but it's not real. As I said, prototypes are lies, right? Okay, so you can actually see that like a bunch of things. So there is a step-by-step guide to how do you get the data like Google Sheets to Firebase. So I'm not going to actually do this with you. I'm going to actually walk you through like these things because it takes some time for you to acclimate to these terms and to understand these things. I'm not going to like force feed you into your brain saying like, oh, you got to learn this right now, right at this moment. Right now. Okay, so this is what we do, right? So once we create the project, we're going to change the rules, and it's going to give us a URL, something like that. You can actually see that. And once you create the URL, so there's a sheet that you create a sheet from Google Drive. Once you create the sheet, so if you look at this, you can go to Tools and Script Editor. Anybody, have you heard about Script Editors? Like, you go to Script Editor, it lets you write app script, what we call at Google. So it gives you a bunch of things. You can copy paste this thing. I linked that code into the document. So you don't need to worry about any of these things. It's already written for you. Only thing that you need to work is like, replace this is that with your Sheets ID and that with your Firebase URL that was generated before. Only two things. That's it. Nothing. And one thing, actually three things. So you basically need to run the initialize function. Once you run that, you select the initialize and you run it. Once you run it, it automatically links the Firebase database and the sheet. Once you link those two things, it's always linked. So whenever you make some change on the sheet, it updates the Firebase database. So you don't have to do anything else other than this. See, you don't need to learn coding at all. Okay. But you have to learn coding if you want to integrate the Firebase database to your prototype. So I'll walk you through a couple of things in my code. It's a little bit, technical, but still, if you look at this, this is my movies. Unable to open. Why is it unable? Seriously? All of them. That's the. Sorry about that. So I moved some of the files there. But you can actually see that if you go to movies, so what I'm trying to do here is, this is the function, like what we call is real-time DB, which is RTDB or whatever it is. So there's some syntax that you could learn from Vue.js. So what we're doing is we're binding movies to the Firebase movies sheet. So we're just binding those two. And once we get the movies, we're gonna render these things into a table like that. Like you can actually see that. We are using a for loop. You need to know a little bit of for loops and if loops and like whatever it is, right? And we're just generating that, and we are going through each and every element, and we're just rendering the title, release date, and voting average. That's what we did there. You go back here on my host 8080. It's like movies. Don't show my face. Okay, so you can actually see that there, right? Now this is okay, this is cool, but like you want to test like two different variations of the same thing, right? So our researchers wants to do A/B testing. Like how do you do that, right? So you can also use query params or like layouts. So basically those are the things that you'd see in a long URL followed by a question mark. You see like a question mark and you see something else. Basically it's telling like passing some values to the web page. So I'm going to pass layout equals card. Okay. I'm just saying that, okay, now instead of table, render me as a card. Now you can actually see that now all the page actually rendered as a card, right? This is the layout that I created. So you can actually see that. That's the card layout. This is the syntax for the card layout. And this is the syntax for the table layout. I want to repeat this again. This is not to scare you off. This is just to inspire you to do things, how you could utilize different variations and stuff. So you could even put this thing onto your, you can create something called settings and ID, and I can actually say movie layout underscore type. I can say name. Okay, I can actually say value is card, right? Basically, that's a card layout. So instead of passing this thing here, you can dynamically change these things, right? So you can go here, and I'm gonna do the same thing here. I'm gonna say movie settings. So array. I'm gonna do that, and that's what did we call them? So that's called the settings. Okay. Now, if you look at this movie settings folder, so you can actually see that if movie settings dot movie layout type dot card. Right? Now I am not actually. Let me actually show you this here on the right, so that. Now I have the card layout here, right? And actually I want a table layout. Hopefully this works. It's a demo. It worked. Okay. So you can basically render these things here on this. The reason why it didn't work is I'm actually changing a different. So one. Don't show my face again, please. All the demos doesn't work. Sometimes you fail. Basically, it's saying like I cannot review the value here, so let's need to do that. Settings. Okay, but anyway, so the point I want to make here is it didn't work, but like, again, the demo gods are not with us. Hopefully, I thought it would work, but it did not. But need a little bit of debugging in terms of like how these values are actually storing or not. So, but actually that's basically I want to actually say those things. And finally, one thing that I want to say is like, you could totally use this concept on Framer X. Have you heard about Framer X, like which uses React components and stuff? If you're playing with that, there is a tool called Framer X. Forgot the name, so it's on the list. It's called Framer X Firebase data. So if you go look at that, it actually lets you tell you like how you could kind of create an app using Firebase. So, okay, that's all I have. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. Any questions so far? Cool.